You put in the hours. You mastered the flashcards, practiced the rolling R's, and right now you are navigating a bustling market in Mexico City like a local. You nailed the order, and you feel great. You've moved past the textbook greetings and just ask, ¿Qué onda? Your vowels are flat, your enunciation is perfectly clean, and the local neighborhood knows you by name. You've built a life around the specific, rhythmic clarity of central Mexico. It is easy to settle into a sense of mastery here. You have learned the rules, the rhythms, and the slang of a massive world capital. But Spanish is not a monolith. It is fiercely tied to geography. And taking the habits you learned in Mexico down to the southern tip of the continent is about to expose some significant blind spots. Fast forward to a cafe in Buenos Aires. The barista asks you a simple question, and you give them a deer-in-the-headlights look. It sounds like Spanish, but your brain cannot process a single word. Both cities officially speak Spanish. On paper, they share a grammar backbone. But on the street, Mexico City and Buenos Aires share almost no common linguistic history. This is the core problem. Knowing the what of the language without the where makes it nearly impossible to keep up at street speed. You aren't just in a different city, you're in a different linguistic world. The first hurdle appears immediately. You ask for a specific street, pronouncing the word calle with that flat Y sound, calle. The barista blinks, confused. This diagram shows the Rioplatense phonetic shift. In Buenos Aires, both the double L and the letter Y are pronounced with an aggressive SH sound. Calle becomes calle. This is an absolute rule applied by everyone in the city. Yo becomes show. Llegar becomes llegar. The entire rhythm of the sentence is different too. Thanks to massive Italian immigration in the 19th and 20th centuries, Porteño Spanish has an intense, melodic intonation that rises and falls like an opera. Between the sh sounds and the Italian-influenced cadence, the most basic words from your textbook can suddenly feel unrecognizable. Flustered, you fall back on the grammar you've used for years and ask a basic question using the pronoun tú. ¿Tú tienes café? This comparison illustrates a core structural divide. Buenos Aires universally uses vos. Adopting it strikes out the middle vowels found in standard Mexican Spanish, morphing tú tienes into vos tenés. The consistent rule shifts verbal stress to the final syllable. Sabes becomes sabes. The barista will understand you when you use tú, but it marks you as someone who hasn't yet adapted to the local environment. Now you are sweating. You try to sound casual, calling the barista güey and mentioning that you are looking for work, chamba. Those words are deeply rooted in central Mexico because they draw directly from Náhuatl, the pre-Columbian language of the Aztec Empire. But Buenos Aires draws from lunfardo, an argot born from the city's criminal underworld and immigrant communities. This chart shows how lunfardo has replaced standard Spanish. Trabajar is rarely heard in the street. People say laburar. Your Mexican chamba is replaced by laburo, and güey becomes che. Slang is local. Using Mexican chamba in a Buenos Aires cafe doesn't just sound foreign, it immediately highlights a lack of local context. In a final attempt to fit in, you reach for a word you just overheard from another table, and you call the barista a boludo. This is a gamble. Depending entirely on your relationship with the person and your tone of voice, boludo can be a warm term for a close friend or a serious insult. You'll find these traps in formality too. Mexico City maintains a clear line between usted and tú to show respect. Buenos Aires defaults to a broad, informal vos for almost everyone, which can hide the subtle social boundaries that still exist. Misjudging these boundaries creates what Argentines call un quilombo, a mess, and can turn a simple coffee order into an uncomfortable confrontation. You grab your coffee and walk out. You realize that the Spanish you learned in a classroom doesn't always translate to the sidewalk. To navigate the transition, you have to make 4 deliberate adjustments. Relearn the SH sound, adopt the vos conjugations, replace your core slang, and adjust your vocal melody. Moving beyond generic vocabulary is the difference between surviving a conversation and actually connecting with the people around you. It requires studying the language as it is spoken in your specific neighborhood. That is why we built StreetTongue. It provides street-level vocabulary, real-time pronunciation scoring, and hyper-local city guides that show you how people actually talk. Stop relying on a general understanding of the language and start learning the real Spanish of your city. Join the StreetTongue waitlist today.